Put that down. You're scaring the real customers." The words, sharp as shattered glass, sliced through the air. The blue dress, a whisper of silk and sky, slipped from Ilara's hand before she could speak. A collective, sharp gasp rippled through the boutique. Heels paused mid-click on the polished marble. Perfume bottles froze mid-spray. The room wasn't silent. It was holding its breath. Veronica Sterling stood tall in front of her, a statue of contempt carved from ice, slim frame, a severe platinum bob curled to severe perfection. Blood-red lips pursed into a smirk. Her voice echoed across the expansive floor, cutting through the soft ambient music and subtle clinking of champagne flutes. "I'm sorry," she said, loud enough for every ear to catch it. "But we have a standard here." "And that sweatshirt?" She waved a perfectly manicured hand at Ilara's plain charcoal hoodie. "You're clearly not part of it." Ilara didn't move. She didn't even blink. She just stood there. A woman in her mid-30s, with warm olive-toned skin and dark hair pulled into a simple, unadorned bun. No makeup, no jewelry, just a small silver ring on her right hand, and eyes that never, ever flinched. Veronica's voice rose, laced with performative impatience. "Are you lost? Or just playing dress-up for your Instagram?" Laughter, thin and cruel, now rippled from behind the cash register and from a customer pretending not to stare. Even the security guard stationed near the entrance shifted awkwardly. Unfazed, Ilara calmly reached for the cornflower blue silk dress again. But Veronica slapped it off the hanger. "You touch anything else," she hissed, "and I will call the police." Have you ever witnessed a moment like this? A judgment made so swiftly and so publicly, based on nothing more than appearance. What goes through your mind when you see it happen? And what does the silence of the other people in the room say to you? A young woman in expensive yoga pants whispered to her friend, "Is she stealing?" Another mouthed, "Is she homeless?" Still, Ilara didn't speak. But her gaze, dark and deep, locked onto Veronica's with unnerving stillness. It wasn't a look of weakness. It wasn't fragile. It was just waiting. From the corner of the room, someone lifted a phone, then another. A soft red glow blinked to life, capturing the scene. "Excuse me," Veronica snapped. "You can't film in here." A girl with bright lavender hair stood her ground. "You just humiliated a woman for browsing," she shot back. "The world's gonna see this." Ilara's hand stayed loose by her side. But her eyes slowly scanned the room, as if taking inventory, not of handbags or dresses, but of faces. A subtle tremor of unease passed through the staff. Then the boutique door swung open. 2 security guards stepped in. Veronica smirked again, gesturing dramatically. "She's not welcome here." The guards approached with cautious steps, their radios crackling softly on their shoulders. One wore a faded badge reading M. Davis. The other was younger, more hesitant, his name tag reading Leo. Both looked to Veronica for instruction. "She's disrupting the store," Veronica declared. "Won't leave, touching expensive merchandise she can't afford." She turned to Ilara, her voice syrupy with fake patience. "You've been warned. Now please, let's not make this any uglier." Ilara's gaze shifted briefly toward the older guard, Davis, her lips parted. But instead of defending herself, she said something quiet, so soft only he could hear it. His brows knitted together. Then quickly, professionally, he masked it. Veronica didn't notice. She was already turning her attention to her assistant manager, Bryce Montgomery, who had rushed over from the back with a stack of inventory reports. Tall, lean, and always a bit too smug, Bryce had slicked back brown hair and a perpetual air of someone who believed he belonged on a Wall Street trading floor. His tone matched Veronica's, smug, clipped, and superior. "What's going on?" he asked, already half smiling at the scene. "She wandered in off the street," Veronica scoffed. "Thought she could try on a $7,000 dress like it's a thrift store." Bryce tilted his head toward Ilara, eyes scanning her like a barcode. "Do you even have a credit card on you?" he asked, amused. No response. He leaned in a little. "Look, sweetheart, if you want selfies, go to H&M." The room chuckled again, lower this time, but still sharp. Ilara's hand slowly reached into her pocket. She pulled out a sleek, matte black card, completely unmarked. No name, no logo. She held it between two fingers, calmly. Bryce blinked. For a split second, the smirk faded, but Veronica laughed, louder now. "Nice prop. You can buy fakes like that on Amazon." A woman browsing sunglasses turned her head. A father with a stroller stopped near the entrance. Something in the air had changed, just slightly, like a draft entering a sealed room. Ilara didn't say a word. She slowly placed the card back into her hoodie and zipped the pocket. Bryce's voice turned sharper, losing its humor. "If you're not buying, you're loitering. I can call the actual police, you know?" Victoria stepped beside him, arms crossed. "Why are you even here? Honestly, looking for a place to warm up?" Ilara looked at both of them. Her eyes didn't harden. They softened. That seemed to scare them more. Then she spoke, just 5 words. "I wanted to see something." Bryce scoffed. "Yeah, what? How rich people shop?" Ilara tilted her head. "No, how you treat them." Silence. It only lasted a second, but it fell heavy. Then Veronica snapped, breaking the tension. "Davis, please escort her out, before she embarrasses herself further." The older guard hesitated, just for a breath, but he reached for her arm, and that's when Ilara stepped back, not out of fear, but out of choice. "I can walk," she said quietly. She turned, steady, toward the glass doors. Behind her, cameras were still recording. Bryce rolled his eyes. "The internet loves a pity party." Victoria smiled. "She'll be forgotten in an hour." But Davis was still staring at the space where the card had been, frowning. Think about Davis, the guard. He heard something that gave him pause, yet he still moved to escort her out. It's a small act, but it speaks volumes about systems and authority. When faced with a choice between a quiet, gut feeling and a direct order from a superior, which path do most people take? And why is it so difficult to choose the former? Outside the boutique, the harsh Chicago sun was sharp and indifferent. Ilara stepped out into it like stepping into cold water, unflinching. Her breath was slow and measured. Shoppers brushed past her without a second glance. A delivery truck hissed to a stop nearby. Somewhere, a street musician played a slow, aching tune on a saxophone, largely ignored. She walked 3 steps and stopped. There, in Aura's window display, hung the very dress she had tried to touch. Cornflower blue silk, hand-beaded, suspended mid-twirl on a faceless mannequin beneath the glowing sign. Aura. Style. Integrity. Legacy. Her reflection stood in the glass next to it. Charcoal hoodie. Black jeans. Sneakers with faint scuffs at the soles. A soft shadow beneath her eyes from too many late nights. Nothing about her fit the illusion behind the window. A group of women walked by behind her, laughing, arms full of shopping bags from other high-end stores. One of them glanced at Ilara's reflection, her face tightening, and she quickly looked away. Still, Ilara didn't move. Lara didn't. She studied the mannequin again. Then herself. Then the store behind the glass. Inside, she saw Bryce laughing as he spoke to Veronica, waving his hand toward the door as if retelling a joke. Veronica leaned on the counter, sipping from a crystal glass, smirking. 2 other employees giggled. They weren't even pretending to hide it now. Then, a moment. The youngest employee, a girl with tight curls pulled into a bun and a name tag that read, Clara, turned away from the group. She looked out the window and met Ilara's eyes through the glass. Just for a second. Her gaze faltered, and she looked down, her cheeks flushing. Ilara's expression didn't change. Instead, she pulled her phone from her pocket, opened the camera. Not for a selfie, not for revenge. She slowly panned across the boutique from the outside, capturing the layout, the employees, the laughter, the sign. Click. She saved the image. Then she turned her camera inward, toward her own reflection in the glass, capturing both her image and the mannequin in one frame. Click. No filter. No pose. Just truth. She lowered the phone, slipped it back into her pocket. Then her fingers brushed against something else. A small, worn notepad. She pulled it out, flipped to the last filled page. A handwritten list. Staff greeting within 15 seconds. Customer assistance offered proactively. Response to pricing inquiry handled with respect. Sensitivity to appearance, bias. Security behavior. Each line had a checkbox. Only one box had been ticked. Ilara stared at it. Then, as the saxophonist's melody shifted in the air, she turned and walked calmly down the magnificent mile, melting into the crowd. Back inside, Clara peeked again at the door, then at Veronica. "That woman," she murmured. Veronica scoffed. "What about her?" Clara shook her head. "Nothing. Just the way she looked at you. Like she knew everything." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Please, she couldn't even spell Prada." But Clara didn't laugh. Her eyes drifted back to the glass. And for a moment, just a flicker, she shivered. Later that afternoon, Aura bustled again, the music back on, laughter floating under crystal chandeliers, champagne bubbling in thin flutes. The incident from earlier had faded like expensive perfume in the air. Or so they thought. Veronica straightened a row of clutches along the accessory wall, pausing to adjust her reflection in a gold-rimmed mirror. Bryce approached with a smirk, holding a fresh tray of macarons. "We survived the wild peasant encounter," he joked. "Barely," Veronica replied, sipping her sparkling water. "She probably wandered in off the L train." Clara, folding scarves nearby, froze. Before anyone could speak, the boutique door opened again. It wasn't Ilara. This time it was a young woman in a fitted black trench coat and diamond-studded heels. She looked wealthy, polished, skin glowing, posture proud, sunglasses perched delicately in her hair. Her phone buzzed in her hand, her lips glossed to perfection. Veronica's face lit up. "Welcome back, Ms. Astor," she chirped, rushing over. "The new pieces you requested just arrived." They escorted her to the VIP fitting lounge, brought out 2 assistants, and laid out selections like a royal procession. Clara carried a tray of mimosas behind her. A few minutes in, Ilara returned. She entered quietly, no announcement, no entourage, just her. Same hoodie, same calm steps. Heads turned. This time there was no confusion, just tension. Veronica spotted her immediately. Her eyes narrowed. Bryce hissed under his breath. "What the hell? She came back." Alara walked to a back rack, pausing in front of a display of limited edition evening gowns. She gently lifted a midnight blue piece, carefully reading the label. Veronica strode up, her voice dripping with disbelief. "You again." Alara didn't turn. "Looking around." "You're done looking," Veronica snapped. "You're not a customer." Alara turned her head. "Are you sure about that?" Bryce appeared beside Veronica, arms crossed. "If you're serious, then let's see it. Do you have that credit card?" Silence fell over the room. Alara slowly reached into her back pocket. Same movement, same card. The matte black surface caught the light, sleek, unmistakable. Bryce's grin twitched. He snatched it from her hand. Turning it over, he blinked. No name, no logo. But something about it made him pause. He tapped it against his fingers like a toy. "Custom fake, huh?" Alara extended her hand calmly. "May I have it back?" Bryce hesitated. Then, smirking again, he pressed it into her palm. Clara stood nearby, watching. Alara met her eyes, just for a second. Then Veronica leaned in, voice low but sharp. "I don't care what card you flash. You're not Aura clientele, and that won't change." Behind them, Miss Astor poked her head from the fitting room. "Is everything all right?" Veronica spun around with a brilliant smile. "Just dealing with a situation?" Ms. Astor raised an eyebrow, looked Alara up and down, then disappeared back behind the velvet curtain. Bryce whispered, "Bet she borrowed that card." Veronica didn't follow, but Clara did. She walked over, gently placing a folded receipt on the shelf beside Alara. No one saw this. She whispered, "But that card, it's real, isn't it?" Alara didn't answer. She just nodded once. And Clara stepped back, like she'd just touched lightning. Veronica's patience snapped like glass under a stiletto. "That's it," she hissed, loud enough for half the boutique to hear. "Security!" Her voice cracked the air, sharp, commanding. She pointed one long, lacquered nail directly at Alara, as if accusing a thief. Bryce chuckled under his breath. Finally. The boutique buzz paused. A woman holding a Gucci bag took a discreet step back. The man near the checkout cleared his throat and pretended not to listen, though his eyes were wide. The soft background music suddenly felt loud, tense. The guards entered within moments. The same pair. Davis, the older one, with eyes that held something unspoken, and Leo, the younger, fingers twitching near his radio. Victoria stormed toward them. "I want her escorted off the premises immediately," she declared. "She's trespassing, disruptive, harassing our staff, and quite frankly, she's making the environment hostile." Davis blinked slowly. "Hostile." Bryce joined her side. "We've already given her a warning. She came back, trying to flash fake credentials and intimidate our team." Alara didn't speak. She stood near the fragrance counter, her fingertips still resting on a small bottle of rose sandalwood. Her expression hadn't changed. Calm, detached, but not passive. There was a weight behind her silence now, an unspoken why. Clara, standing by the lounge curtain, gripped the edge of her apron. Veronica noticed. "You," she snapped, glaring at the younger employee. "Go clock out for the day, now." Clara hesitated. "But now." Clara's lips parted, but she swallowed the words. She turned quickly, disappearing into the back room. Bryce smirked, Maybe she can follow her new friend out the door. Davis approached Ilara slowly. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I'm being asked to remove you. I don't want this to escalate." Ilara looked up at him, steady. "I understand." Davis waited, but she didn't move. Veronica's heels clicked forward. "Do your job already." Then, without warning, Bryce stepped forward and grabbed Ilara by the elbow. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Too firm. Too personal. Too public. And in that moment, the fragile piece of the boutique cracked. A gasp escaped from one of the customers. Another pulled out a phone. The woman with the Gucci bag whispered, "Oh my God, is he touching her?" Bryce didn't notice, or didn't care. "Let's go," he muttered. But Ilara stayed rooted. Her voice, when it came, was like ice over a still pond. "You might want to let go." Bryce laughed, but the sound rang hollow. Then Davis's hand landed hard on his shoulder. "Enough!" Everyone looked. Bradley stepped back, confused. "What? I'm helping. She said she'll leave," Davis said, his voice firm. "There's no need for hands." Veronica rushed forward. "She doesn't belong here." Ilara turned, and for the first time, she raised her voice, just a touch. "I didn't come here to belong." Then she walked toward the door on her own, gracefully, slowly, deliberately, not escorted, not dragged, just leaving. But as she passed the glass, someone outside pointed a phone straight at her. Recording. Live. Veronica shouted behind her, "Don't ever come back!" Ilara paused at the door and looked over her shoulder, not at Veronica, not at Bryce, but at Clara, who was peeking from the back hallway. Their eyes met again. And Ilara smiled. Not a vindictive smile, not a hurt smile, just a knowing one. Then she stepped out into the daylight once more, alone, but not unseen. Inside, Davis stood frozen, still staring after her. Victoria huffed. "What are you waiting for?" He didn't answer. Because he couldn't forget what Ilara had whispered to him earlier. A single sentence that now echoed louder than anything she'd said since. "I'm the one who signs your paycheck." The moment Bryce puts his hands on Ilara is a turning point. It's no longer just about words. It's a physical escalation. Why do some people resort to physical intimidation when their verbal authority is challenged? Does it signal a loss of control, or is it an ultimate expression of the power they believe they have? The door whispered shut behind her. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the bruise forming behind that glass. Ilara stood just beyond Aura's entrance, still as stone. Cars crawled by in late afternoon traffic on Michigan Avenue. A stroller rolled past. A barista across the street scrawled chalk letters on a sidewalk board that read, "Kindness is always in fashion." But in that moment, everything around her felt irrelevant. She inhaled slowly, held it, let it out. Her hands, loose by her side, curled just slightly, then released. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out her phone. The screen lit up. 7 missed calls, 12 text messages, and at the top, a trending alert. At Aura outrage. Woman thrown out of Luxe Boutique sparks fierce debate. Over 400,000 views. Comments exploding beneath it. Ilara's thumb hovered over the link, then moved past. She opened her gallery instead and stared at the photo she'd taken earlier. Her reflection next to that faceless mannequin. The truth behind glass. A notification popped up. You're trending. Still, no expression. She locked the screen. Then a voice beside her, soft, unsure. Hey. Ilara turned. A young woman, maybe 23, maybe younger, stood near the boutique window. She wore a denim jacket, an oversized scarf, and had earbuds dangling from her collar. I saw what happened, she said. Inside. Ilara raised an eyebrow. The girl shifted her weight awkwardly. I wasn't recording, but I wanted to. Why didn't you? Ilara asked gently. The girl hesitated. I don't know. I guess I didn't want to get kicked out too. She looked down at her boots, embarrassed, then back up. That was wrong, what they did to you. Ilara offered a faint nod. It's not the first time. The girl blinked. Still, I'm sorry. Ilara met her gaze. Don't be sorry for them. The girl's brows furrowed. Ilara added, just don't become them. The girl stared at her for a long second, then nodded. Wordless. A bus rolled up behind them, hissing to a stop. The girl stepped toward it, pausing once to glance back. Ilara gave her the smallest of smiles. Then she turned again, this time toward the boutique. Inside, Veronica poured herself another drink. Bryce laughed at something on his phone. Clara wiped a counter no one had touched. But at the far edge of the display wall, the same glass door that had just closed behind Ilara now showed a faint smudge where a hand had been pressed. A silent reminder. Ilara tapped her phone again. This time, she opened her calendar. Her thumb hovered over an entry. Julian Vance, CEO briefing, 5 p.m. She tapped reschedule, then pressed now, and hit send. Inside the boutique, Veronica finally looked toward the window. She saw Ilara, still there, watching. Veronica's smirk faltered for the first time. Because Ilara wasn't walking away, she was waiting. 12 blocks away, in a cozy coffee shop with chipped ceramic mugs and the faint hum of indie jazz, two college students huddled over a laptop, their iced drinks sweating onto napkins. The screen was paused mid-frame on a shaky vertical video. A woman in a charcoal hoodie standing frozen while a boutique manager screamed at her. Comments flooded the screen. Is this real? I hope she sues. Why is the manager acting like that? Her face, the way she just looks at them, OMG. The cursor hovered over the play button. The girl on the left, Maya, tapped it again. The clip resumed. Ilara, silent, still, humiliated. Bryce, grinning. Veronica, smug. The moment security arrived. The card in Ilara's hand. The tension. The silence. The video ended. Maya leaned back. Okay. There's something weird about her. Weird how? Asked her friend, Chloe, who had her hair in a messy bun and a small septum ring shining under the cafe lights. Maya leaned in again, rewinding. Here, look, that part. She paused the clip, just as Ilara slipped the black card back into her pocket. Chloe squinted. No logo. Maya nodded. And no name. That's not some knockoff. That's like custom. Maybe one of those black-tier concierge cards or something. Chloe frowned. You think she's famous? I don't know. Maya zoomed in. Wait, look at her wrist. There, barely visible between her hoodie sleeve and palm, was a small tattoo. Not decorative. Minimalist. Sharp lines. A geometric V within a circle. Chloe blinked. I've seen that. Where? She pulled up her phone, opened a business magazine's Instagram page, and scrolled quickly, then stopped. An old photo from an awards ceremony. A woman in a power suit, her face turned slightly away from the camera, but the wrist tattoo was clearly visible. The caption read, "Ilara Vance receives Innovators Award for her investment in ethical AI through Vance Enterprises." Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. Wait, that's her. Chloe stared at the screen. But in the video, she looked like she didn't want to be recognized. They sat in silence for a moment, processing it. Then Chloe muttered, "Oh my God. They kicked out the owner of the company." Maya's eyes widened. This is about to blow up. Already, the views had doubled. The video had been reposted by an influencer with 2 million followers. Another fashion blogger was asking for DMs from people who'd witnessed it. And deep in the comments, a single reply stood out, liked thousands of times. "I used to work there. That manager. She's always been like this." Chloe sat back. That store's reputation is dead. Maya bit her lip. Yeah, and they don't even know it yet. Chloe hesitated, then added, "But she does?" Maya looked up. Who? Chloe pointed at the screen. Her. She knew exactly what she was doing. On the laptop, the paused frame showed Ilara's face again. Calm, unreadable, powerful in its silence. Outside the boutique, Ilara watched people pass with phones in hand, some whispering as they looked at her. She turned slowly and began walking again. But this time, not away. At the 53rd floor of the Vance Enterprises tower, the atmosphere was different. Crisp, glassy, and buzzing with an attention no one could quite name yet. The receptionist at the front desk of the public relations department glanced at her phone. Her screen lit up with yet another notification. Hashtag Aura outrage discrimination incident trending at number 4 nationally. Then, at the real Ilara Vance. Wait, is that her? She owns the store. She looked up just in time to see a junior analyst rush past, holding a stack of printouts. 2 others huddled in the break room, whispering. One tapped a paused video frame on his screen. That is her. Look at the eyes. Down the hall, in a sleek glass conference room lined with black leather chairs, the tension had condensed into near silence. 4 department heads sat around the table, each staring at the flat-screen monitor mounted on the wall. The footage was playing again. Ilara. Charcoal hoodie. Black card. Veronica's voice echoing. You don't belong here. No one spoke until it ended. Then the head of corporate risk, a broad-shouldered man named Daniel Price, cleared his throat. This was filmed inside one of our stores. The head of HR, Grace Fields, murmured, How long ago? Daniel didn't look away from the screen. 2 hours. Grace paled. Has she said anything? Asked another executive. Daniel shook his head. No, not a word. Not even internally. Which location? The Magnificent Mile flagship. Veronica Sterling, store manager. Bryce Montgomery, assistant. A stunned silence. Then Grace whispered, You think she planned this? The room froze. David finally turned from the screen, his tone slow and cautious. I don't think she had to. She just walked in. A new face appeared at the door. Julian Vance, CEO of Vance Enterprises. Mid-40s, sharp navy suit, square jaw, and a controlled intensity in his walk. No tie, just presence. Everyone rose instinctively. He waved them down. Where is she? Daniel blinked. She hasn't come in. Not yet. Julian nodded once, then looked at the paused screen. At Alara's eyes. Still. Focused. Impossible to read. He turned to Grace. When was the last customer experience audit submitted from that store? Grace scrambled through her tablet, tapping fast. 6 weeks ago, she said. Red flags on staff behavior. Multiple complaints about profiling and rude service. Julian didn't blink. And we still kept her there? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Grace hesitated. She's well-connected, married to a lawyer, old-school friends with the original Aura chain director. Julian turned to Daniel. Schedule an audit, now. Full sweep. Pull transaction logs, exit interviews, everything. Daniel stood. Should we release a statement? Julian shook his head. Not yet. Let the fire burn long enough for people to see what's really there. He walked toward the door. Where are you going? Grace asked. He paused, looked back. To clean the front window. And he left. Down in the lobby, the security guard watched the trending video on his phone, his mouth slowly parting in realization. Then, ding. The elevator doors opened, and Alara Vance stepped out. No hoodie this time. Black tailored suit, white silk blouse, subtle diamond studs. The same quiet strength in her eyes. People turned as she passed. Not because she was loud, but because the silence around her felt earned. A receptionist nearly stood up in her chair. Alara walked toward the executive wing without saying a word. Behind her, a hush followed, like a queen moving through a court that had forgotten she wore a crown. This shift in location, from the public floor of the boutique to the private sanctum of the corporate office, changes everything. The narrative of a disruptive woman is instantly replaced by one of an undercover boss. Does the truth of a situation change depending on who is watching, or does the power to define the truth simply shift into different hands? The boutique lights shimmered too brightly that evening, as if trying to distract from the tension clinging to the walls like static. Veronica stood behind the counter, swirling the last of her rosé in a crystal glass. Her voice was light, flippant, but her jaw twitched when no one was looking. I don't care what Twitter says, she muttered to Bryce. She's a nobody. She came in wearing sneakers. Bryce, his eyes glued to his phone, chuckled nervously. Right, but this video's at 3.1 million views now. Veronica snapped her head toward him. Don't be dramatic. Social media forgets everything in 2 days. Bryce didn't answer, because the boutique doors had just opened, and a man walked in. No sales associate greeted him. No one had to. He wasn't the type of man people greeted. He was the type they cleared space for. Julian Vance, tall, sharply built, clean-shaven with neat side-parted hair and a storm gathering behind his eyes. Navy suit, open collar, a black leather portfolio held under his arm. He moved like someone who had nothing to prove and everything to expose. Bryce blinked. Can I help you? Julian didn't even look at him. He scanned the store slowly. The shelves, the fixtures, the employee stations, each staff member's posture. Then his eyes landed on the counter. On Veronica. She smiled. Wide, but brittle. Hi there. Welcome to Aura. Were you looking for something special tonight? Her voice climbed into its rehearsed, welcoming chirp. Julian didn't respond. He stopped exactly 5 feet from her, placed the black portfolio on the marble surface, and opened it without a word. Inside, a printed screenshot of the viral video. Frame 1. Veronica. Mid-sneer. Frame 2. Ilara's face, in focus. Frame 3. Bryce's hand on her arm. Veronica's smile died. I'm not sure what this is about, she stammered. That woman caused a disturbance. We were protecting the store. Julian raised a hand, just one finger, and Veronica went silent. I'm Julian Vance, he said calmly, Chief Executive Officer, Vance Enterprises. A thunderclap couldn't have been louder than the silence that fell. Bryce's eyes widened in horror. One of the assistants behind them actually gasped. Veronica's mouth opened, then shut, like a fish out of water. The moment Julian Vance reveals his identity is a classic power move. He doesn't raise his voice. He just states a fact that completely upends Veronica and Bryce's reality. Think about the nature of power. Is it more effectively demonstrated through loud commands and threats, or through quiet, undeniable truth? Julian turned one page in the folder. Internal reports confirm this location has received over 20 formal complaints in the last quarter, 4 related to profiling, 3 to staff aggression. The rest, a mix of hostility and deliberate neglect. He looked up at her. Would you like to explain that to me? Veronica swallowed hard. I wasn't aware of those numbers. Julian tilted his head. You weren't aware? Or you didn't care? She stiffened. We have a certain clientele here. We are expected to uphold a standard. He took one step closer. Your only standard, he said, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet, is respect. Victoria tried to speak again, but her voice faltered. Marcus placed a tablet on the counter and played the video again. No sound, just visuals. This time the staff watched in real time as their own actions played across the screen. Victoria's sneer. Bradley's smirk. Sasha's face in the background, torn between speaking up and staying safe. And at the center, Amara. Quiet, still, stronger than all of them. Marcus paused the clip. Do you recognize this woman? Bryce finally found his voice. She's the one from earlier. Caused the whole scene. Julian leaned forward. She's your boss. Veronica blinked. What? She's Ilara Vance, Julian said coldly. The founder of this company. The one who built this boutique chain from a single storefront. The one who owns it. Bradley stumbled back a step, physically reeling. Veronica's wine glass slipped from her numb fingers and shattered on the marble floor. No one moved. No one breathed. Except Julian, who turned the screen around for all to see and hit play again. That single, shattering sentence, "She's your boss," is the ultimate climax. Everything Veronica and Bryce thought they knew about status, power, and their own place in the world is destroyed in an instant. Have you ever had a moment where your entire perception of a situation was instantly and irrevocably changed by one new piece of information? How does it feel when the ground shifts so completely beneath your feet? Veronica didn't hear the glass shatter. Not really. It was just a sharp sound somewhere behind the roaring in her ears. What? She whispered. Julian didn't blink. She's the founder of Aura, he repeated, slowly and deliberately. The sole architect of your career. The woman you just humiliated in front of staff, customers, and now half the country. Bryce's knees nearly buckled. There's no way. That woman looked... Julian cut him off. Looked how, exactly? Bryce's mouth hung open, words failing him. But Veronica recovered first, grasping for a defense. This "This is a setup," she stammered. "She came in pretending to be someone else. She didn't say who she was. She dressed like a person," Julian offered. "One you chose to belittle?" She flinched. He opened his portfolio again and laid out 2 more documents. Complaint transcripts, filed weeks before this incident. Nearly identical patterns of behavior. Customers reporting being ignored, judged by their appearance, or spoken down to by management. Bryce reached for 1 page, then pulled his hand back as if it were on fire when Julian's eyes flicked toward him. "And," Julian continued, "internal cameras show that neither of you attempted to de-escalate. You provoked her. In public. On camera." Veronica's voice grew sharp, defensive. "She didn't act like a CEO. She didn't look like one. She didn't even—" Julian raised a hand again. Veronica's words died mid-sentence. "Do you honestly think respect is conditional?" he asked, his voice now dangerously quiet. "That it's earned by clothing? By posture? That it vanishes when someone walks in looking human?" Veronica stood frozen, breathing fast. A door behind them opened. Soft footsteps approached. Everyone turned. Ilara walked in. Not with a team, not with press. Just herself. This time in a black sheath dress, minimal jewelry and low heels. No makeup. Her hair loose over her shoulders. She didn't look angry. She looked resolved. Julian nodded once. "Right on time." Bryce took a step back. I didn't know." Ilara looked at him, her gaze cool. "I didn't ask if you knew." Her voice was calm, like rain before thunder. She turned to Veronica, who visibly shrank under her gaze. There were no grand theatrics, no raised voices, just a silence so thick it made the walls of the store feel like they were closing in. Veronica tried. "Ms. Vance." "Don't," Ilara said. Just that one word. Victoria's lips snapped shut. Ilara walked slowly to the middle of the boutique, then turned, addressing the room, not just the staff, but the space itself, the very air. "I built Aura because I wanted a space where elegance didn't have to come at the cost of dignity," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Because people who looked like me were often not allowed to exist comfortably in places like this." Her gaze swept over every person in the room. "And here we are, years later, still being treated like shadows." No one dared to speak. She turned back to Julian. "I want a full audit. Today." "It's already begun," he confirmed. Ilara nodded. Then she turned to Clara, who had quietly emerged from the back. Her eyes met Ilara's. They were wide, grateful, and deeply embarrassed. "Are you okay?" Ilara asked gently. Clara nodded, her voice barely audible. "Thank you." Ilara looked at her for a long moment, a flicker of a smile in her eyes. Then she faced Veronica and Bryce again. "I didn't come here to play gotcha," she said. "But if I have to walk in myself to see what our customers are enduring, then I will keep doing it." She turned, walking slowly toward the door. But just before stepping out, she said over her shoulder, "By the way, don't bother calling HR. They're already waiting for you upstairs." Then she left. The silence she left behind wasn't awkward. It was a reckoning. The door clicked shut behind Ilara. Inside the boutique, no one moved. Veronica's lips parted, but no sound came out. Bryce stood like a statue, phone still clutched in his hand. Forgotten. Clara exhaled slowly, a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. And Julian. Julian tapped the screen on his tablet. The video began again, but this time on the boutique's 60-inch display monitor above the perfume counter. The same scene, the same voices, the same humiliation, now playing in their own store, in high definition. Put that down. You're scaring the real customers. Veronica's jaw clenched. A customer who had just walked in stopped dead at the door, watching. You're not aura clientele. More staff gathered quietly from the back. Do you even have a credit card? Julian turned to face them all. I want every employee to watch this, he said, his voice resonating through the tense space. Because this isn't just about one mistake. It's about culture. It's about what happens when power becomes a habit and kindness becomes selective. He looked directly at Veronica, then at Bryce, and finally at the others. You all knew, maybe not her name, but you knew something wasn't right. Clara stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. I tried to say something. She glanced at Veronica. She told me to clock out. Julian nodded, his expression softening slightly. And you came back, he said. That matters. Veronica exploded. This is insane, she snapped, her voice cracking. She tricked us. She walked in here like a test. If she had just said who she was, Julian's voice was ice. She shouldn't have had to. Bryce looked physically ill. She owns everything. Julian's eyes bored into him. She created this store. From the ground up, she hired the original design team, handpicked the first collection. And now, thanks to you, she's also the reason every media outlet in this city is camped outside. At that moment, the lights in the store seemed to dim. Not from a power outage, but from the shadows of press vans and camera crews piling up against the glass facade of the boutique. Flashes popped. Microphones pressed against the doors. Sasha whispered, "Oh my God." Bryce cursed under his breath, stepping back toward the stockroom as if he could hide there. Veronica didn't move. Her face was a frozen mask of disbelief. No script, no charm, no defense. Julian closed the portfolio and handed it to a man in a black suit who had just entered silently behind him. Vance Enterprises' VP of Compliance. This location is closed as of tonight, Julian said firmly. Pending a full internal review, effective immediately. What? Veronica barked. You can't do that. He didn't look at her. I just did. But my clients, I can shop at stores that don't humiliate people on arrival. Clara covered her mouth with her hands. Outside, reporters shouted Alara's name. The glass trembled slightly with each camera flash. Julian turned one last time. I suggest you think very carefully about what kind of person you've been when you thought no one important was watching. He headed toward the door. Before stepping through, he paused and glanced back at Clara. I'll see you on Monday, at headquarters. Her eyes widened. Then, for the first time that day, she smiled. Julian pushed the door open, letting in a rush of camera flashes and muffled questions. And the boutique, the kingdom Veronica thought she ruled, was left in a cold, bitter, and resounding silence. It's often said that character is what you do when no one is watching. In this story, Veronica and Bryce were being watched by everyone except the one person they thought mattered. What does this say about our modern ideas of who is watching? Has social media turned every public space into a stage where everyone is a potential audience?